pitch was so compelling that I immediately said, I think this could be great. I think it might actually be one of the best stories to start off the new standalone movies. It seemed to fit very much into the direction and some of the ideas that we'd been kicking around. And the fact that this sort of falls into the genre of a World War II type story, a heist movie.
So in May of 1978, that's a year after Star Wars came out, my dad had a conference in Anaheim, and he brought my brothers and I along. It's my first trip to California. And I had read this amazing article in Cine Fantastique magazine. They had fairly substantial interviews with a lot of the folks that had worked on New Hope at ILM. I was 15, and there I was in the hotel room in Anaheim, and I picked up a phone book and just, on a lark, looked to see if there was a listing for Industrial Light and Magic, and there was. So I called up, and I said, I'm a model maker, and I'm interested in working in the industry. He said, well, why don't you come on down and we'll show you around. So the next morning, my dad drove me to Van Nuys, where ILM was, dropped me off. I spent the entire day at ILM. I saw them building models in the model shop for the next episode. That was a pretty transformative experience. When Kathy came on board at Lucasfilm and we announced these standalone stories, I just started thinking, you know, that idea from the opening crawl of New Hope, of stealing the Death Star plans, you know, it's just a bit of backstory, but it seemed like, you know, that could be a pretty compelling film just by itself. We'd be talking in the hallway with just friends of mine, and I would pitch them a 30-second version of the movie, and they'd say, oh, wow, no, I want to see that. You need to go make an appointment to pitch this to Kathy. You have to pitch this to Kathy. So I made an appointment, and I pitched it to Kathy.
John, who is somebody I've known over the years, called me up and said, you know, I've always had an idea that I've been thinking about and kicking around, and I'd love to come in and talk to you about it. And he came in and essentially pitched the idea that's spelled out in the opening crawl of New Hope about rebel spies that go in to steal the plans to the Death Star.
It was immediately plausible that we could do something within that World War II adventure genre and have it still feel very much like Star Wars.
I didn't hear anything for about a week, so I thought, all right, well, okay, at least I did it. And then I got an email from Kiri that, you know, this is, we're really intrigued by this. We may want to proceed. To read that, you know, I was just all alone and like, oh man, I want to tell somebody, but you know, it's all, gotta keep it quiet.
John and I go way back. I mean, we probably started at ILM almost the same year. When I heard that he had pitched this idea and that it was actually on the slate to be one of the films, I actually, you know, ran into John in the hallway and said, hey, you know, tell me about what this film is. How can I help you? How can we kickstart this? And at that time, we didn't know who the director was. We didn't even have a writer. Basically, you know, I pitched him, can we actually start a small development team? Just some initial ideas under your guidance. And we started to develop the world of Rogue One. The whole idea was just to help launch the project so that when the writer came on board and when the director came on board, we had a head start.
Doug told me that John Knoll had a project that he wanted help with, and it was just going to be kind of a small in-house thing between a couple of artists and John. My first task that John wanted me to work on was to get one piece of art kind of depicting this rebel unit and really showing that they're this motley group. You know, it was a variety of humans, the droid, and then 2 aliens, each with different skills and different abilities. Even back in this first iteration, the commander was Jin.
What makes something a saga film is it's related to the Skywalker family in some way. But Star Wars stories, I think, can be anything. We want these movies to have a distinctiveness to them, and so we're very interested in filmmakers who have really strong points of view when it comes to their sort of visual take on things. And this movie in particular, we wanted the right person to tackle this particular set of events that are so important to what happens in F4.
We popped in a Blu-ray of Monsters in George's screening room in the main house at Skywalker Ranch. And we watched Monsters and came out of it and said, great, looks good. Gareth's gonna be our guy.
Monsters was Gareth's first film. It has a really fresh, like very interesting visual point of view that we thought would make Rogue One special.
So we sat down and talked to him, and again, what we were surprised by was what an incredible fan he was.
The affection that he had for Episode 4 was so palpable.
This is the actual one he played with.
And not just affection, but knowledge, like deep, deep knowledge of it.
I said all my embarrassing stories about going to Tunisia and things like that. Star Wars means the world to me. I never, ever, ever thought that I'd be lucky enough to be directing a Star Wars movie.
You know, the very first thing that he said when I asked him, can you tell me what you love about Star Wars, was, I've always wanted to join the Rebel Alliance.
We're creating a narrative that explores the idea of the Alliance coming together. So we wanted this to be an extremely diverse group of characters.
And as we tell a story about the coming together of the Rebel Alliance, how do we represent that in the ensemble? And that's a lot of fun, to figure out these characters so that when they do come together, it feels like they're all true rebels.
That process was to really refine the emotional biographies of the characters.
It was important to us to really make sure that we're not just telling the story of this superweapon, but that we're telling the story of these people.